There are 4 gods who rule Dreamland: Oro the Eversphere, the glorious orbital dice, Pentacles the Putrid, and Triangulus the Foul, the god of madness.
True understanding requires forgetting everything you know. But forgetting everything you know means understanding nothing. Quite the pickle, isn't it, mortal?
But what do we actually mean by madness in this context? Because the kind of madness that Triangulus the Foul governs isn't a medical condition or some kind of clinical pathology. Instead, the kind of madness that Triangulus is associated with is a rejection of rationality.
Triangulus the Foul is the god of madness. But what is madness? The Dreamland Almanac tells us that madness here is not a clinical pathology. But then why do Triangulus's most devoted followers live in Shady Pines Psychiatric Hospital? Is the Almanac wrong, or does the Bureau of Latent Memories punish what they can't control?
Worshipping Triangulus the Foul doesn't involve adhering to a specific belief system, but rather it entails precisely the rejection of a principled set of beliefs. But this runs into a specific problem. If you're committed to rejecting rational thinking, isn't that itself a kind of belief system? Well, the answer is in fact no. This is because a belief system gives you clear rules to follow, clear doctrines to abide by. It tells you what counts as true, what counts as false, what counts as justification, what counts as meaning, importance, significance, perhaps on a cosmic scale. But followers of Triangulus the Foul don't have that. Triangularity, as they call it, doesn't replace rationality with an entirely new system. It doesn't introduce new truths to memorize or positions to maintain. What it rejects is something much simpler. It rejects the filter that rationality imposes on our experience. See, rationality is not just a tool that helps you think. It also acts as a kind of gatekeeper, filtering out what matters, what's important, what's significant, and what's useful to assimilate and concentrate on. See, rationality seeks to render the world interpretable. It's always trying to explain and make sense of the world. And if something can't be accounted for, it gets dismissed as noise, distraction, clutter, unimportant. Whatever doesn't fit into an interpretation that makes sense is discarded as irrelevant. Triangularity refuses that dismissal. It treats what rationality throws away as the entire point. Where common sense says, ignore that, Triangularity says, that's where the real scene is happening. And that's precisely why rejecting rationality here isn't a rule that you can write down and apply. It's a way of moving through the world where experience isn't fit into neat little boxes and compartmentalized, made sense of, and boiled down into one linear, tidy narrative. The point isn't to make experience coherent, but it's to embrace the incoherent nature of much of our experience of the world. And it's because of that that Triangularity cannot be distilled into a formal belief system. The moment that you turn it into a program with specific criteria, procedures, and principles, you've rebuilt the structure that Triangularity seeks to suspend. Triangularity only survives by remaining loose and unstructured and refusing the possibility of it being hardened into some kind of doctrine. See how this works in practice? Consider a passage from a journal written by a devoted follower of Triangulus the Foul.
I enter the supermarket without a list. Lists in forced sequence. I move aisle to aisle and let the shelves set the order. Processed cheese triangles end up in my hand. Sealed plastic, repeating points. I don't question it. A few steps later, a magazine cover with a politician smiling, teeth fixed, eyes holding. Then disinfectant. lemon sharp enough to tighten the throat. The smell overrides everything else for a moment. Then a cereal box, cartoon astronaut, bright helmet, floating body. I place all of it in the basket together, not separately. One cluster, one moment. The grouping feels complete. Any other arrangement would break it. At the checkout, a question is asked. I don't answer it. The basket already has. The triangles redirect attention to the astronaut. The astronaut neutralizes the disinfectant. The disinfectant flattens the smile on the magazine. The magazine turns the triangles into packaging again. Each object adjusts the others. Categories don't survive this. Food fails. News fails. Cleaning fails. The contact remains. I do not resolve it. I do not explain it. Leave it intact.
From this one ordinary trip to the supermarket, I can actually learn quite a lot about the mind of a Triangulus devotee. Travers doesn't make a shopping list, and that small detail matters because lists impose order, they impose sequence, they enforce rational thought. Instead, Travers moves through the supermarket as a series of connected moments and selects items not according to their standard categories, their conventional function, but rather their contact with one another. A packet of processed cheese triangles, a magazine cover showing a politician smiling, a bottle of disinfectant, a child's cereal box with a cartoon astronaut, and these objects aren't treated as food, news, a cleaning product, or a childhood artifact. That's what ordinary rational thinking would do. Instead, Travers refuses that categorization. He treats these objects as one cluster, one event that forms a unified whole and can't be broken down into rationally ordered pieces. And what this reveals is a form of madness that can't be corrected or argued away, because it doesn't appear as a position within rational discourse in the first place. The point isn't that Travers asserts something irrational, but simply declines to provide what rational systems demand: stable explanations, consistent motives, and definitive interpretations. And this raises a broader question. How do institutions committed to rational order respond when faced with the irrational, with triangularity? How do they deal with people who won't make themselves legible? If the kind of madness that Triangulus the Foul is associated with is simply a deviation from rationality, then why are Triangulus the Foul's strongest supporters locked away in Shady Pines Psychiatric Hospital? Shady Pines is used by the Bureau of Latent Memories, an organization built on documentation, procedure, order, which must apply and be useful consistently from case to case. The Bureau doesn't recognize the Polygods as real, at least that's its formal position, and from its perspective, followers of Triangulus aren't engaged in any kind of legitimate religious practice, but are simply behaving in ways that undermine the Bureau's ability to maintain order through established protocols. Their madness is threatening, not because it simply breaks rules, but because it resists management through the Bureau's normal tools and methods. Triangulus's followers don't explain themselves consistently, they don't anchor their actions in stable reasons or justifications, and they don't accept shared standards of evidence and justification, and this makes them difficult to interview, difficult to classify, and difficult to predict. And for an organisation structured around forms, files, and records, that kind of instability appears dangerous. Hence, the confinement of Triangulus the Foul's most devoted followers to Shady Pines Psychiatric Hospital is better understood as an administrative move rather than a medical one. Shady Pines provides the Bureau the way to remove these people from society. By calling it illness, the Bureau converts something politically unsettling to something that can be monitored, assessed, and controlled. And this doesn't demonstrate in the slightest that Triangulus's madness is clinical. What it shows is that clinical language functions instead as a mechanism of control. Bureau uses medical language in order to control what it cannot deal with on its own terms.